The internet may be the most effective boredom-killing machine ever created. Think about it. For most of history, information was difficult to find. Today, it finds you. You don't have to search for entertainment. Entertainment searches for you. Algorithms learn what you like. Videos start automatically. Recommendations never stop. The average person can eliminate boredom within seconds. And that's completely new. For almost all of human history, boredom couldn't be escaped so easily. If you were sitting around a campfire 30,000 years ago and felt bored, there was no device waiting to rescue you. No notification, no new video, no endless feed. Just you, your thoughts, and the people around you. At first, that sounds terrible, but anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer societies noticed something interesting. Many traditional groups spend surprisingly little time doing absolutely nothing. Not because they have endless entertainment, but because daily life naturally fills the day. Which raises a fascinating possibility. Maybe our ancestors weren't fighting boredom the way we do. Maybe they experienced it differently altogether. Most people imagine prehistoric life as endless struggle, constant hunting, constant danger, constant work. The reality is more complicated. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer groups suggest many spend fewer hours working than modern office workers. That surprises a lot of people. But survival wasn't a 9-to-5 job. There were periods of intense effort, then periods of rest. A successful hunt might provide food for days. A good gathering trip could supply enough resources for the group. But even during downtime, people weren't simply sitting around staring into space. Tools needed repair. Clothing needed mending. Children needed care. Weapons needed sharpening. Shelters needed maintenance. Knowledge needed teaching. Human life was deeply social. People talked, observed, learned, participated. The line between work and leisure was often blurry. And that matters because boredom tends to thrive when people feel disconnected from meaningful activity. Our ancestors may have had fewer distractions, but they often had more direct involvement in their daily lives. Every task mattered. Every skill mattered. Every person mattered. And when the work was finished, something even more important began.
Today, stories come from screens. For most of human history, stories came from people. And stories were everywhere. Around campfires, inside shelters, during meals, while traveling. Anthropologists have found that conversations in hunter-gatherer societies changed dramatically after sunset. During the day, discussions focus on practical survival. Food, tools, travel, work. But at night, something different happens. People tell stories. Stories about ancestors. Stories about animals. Stories about spirits. Stories about distant places. Stories about impossible things. Long before books existed, storytelling was humanity's primary entertainment. It was also education, history, religion, culture, and social bonding all at once. Imagine hearing a story so compelling that it survives for hundreds of generations. That's exactly what happened. Some myths may have been passed down for thousands of years before anyone ever wrote them down. Before Netflix, there were stories. Before YouTube, there were storytellers. Before social media, there was the campfire. And those stories may have shaped the human mind itself. But storytelling wasn't the only thing people did when they had free time. There was another activity our ancestors spent enormous amounts of time doing. Something modern humans are becoming increasingly uncomfortable with. Thinking.
Imagine sitting beside a fire. No phone, no television, no music, no notifications. Nothing demanding your attention. Just darkness, silence, and your own thoughts. For modern people, that can sound surprisingly difficult. In fact, psychologists have conducted experiments where participants were asked to sit alone with their thoughts for a short period of time. Many people found it uncomfortable. Some even preferred receiving mild electric shocks rather than sitting quietly without stimulation. Think about that. A species that spent hundreds of thousands of years without digital entertainment now struggles to be alone with its own mind. But our ancestors didn't have a choice. Periods of reflection were unavoidable. They watched flames. They watched stars. They watched weather move across the landscape. And during those moments, their minds wandered. Researchers believe boredom itself may have served an important purpose. When nothing demands your attention, the brain begins generating its own. Ideas emerge, memories connect, problems get solved, imagination becomes active. Many scientists believe some of humanity's greatest innovations may have started during moments that looked like doing nothing. Which raises a strange question. If boredom helped humans create civilization, why are we trying so hard to eliminate it?
Here's where the story gets strange. The modern concept of boredom is surprisingly recent. Humans have always experienced restlessness, frustration, impatience. But the kind of boredom many people experience today may be different. Today, we expect constant stimulation. If a video takes too long, we skip it. If a page loads slowly, we get annoyed. If we're waiting in line for 30 seconds, many of us reach for our phones automatically. Our brains have become accustomed to immediate engagement. Ancient humans lived in a completely different environment. Waiting was normal. Travel took days. Seasons took months. Knowledge took years to acquire. Patience wasn't optional. It was part of life. That doesn't mean they never felt bored. Of course they did. They were human. But they weren't surrounded by infinite alternatives competing for their attention every second all the time. And because of that, boredom may have felt less like a problem to solve and more like a normal part of existence. If you're enjoying the video so far, leave a comment telling me what you think would be hardest to live without. The internet, electricity, or modern transportation? Because the answer says a lot about how dependent we've become on modern technology.
For hundreds of thousands of years, boredom wasn't an enemy. It was a signal that pushed humans to explore, to create, to imagine, to invent. A bored child might invent a game. A bored hunter might improve a tool. A bored storyteller might create a new myth. A bored mind starts looking for possibilities. And that may be one reason our species became so successful. The same brain that gets restless is also the brain that creates. Today, boredom rarely lasts long enough to do its job. The moment it appears, we remove it. We swipe, scroll, click, watch, listen, and the feeling disappears. But for almost all of human history, there was no escape button. People sat with boredom. They lived with it. They listened to it. And perhaps that discomfort helped shape the species we became. The next time you find yourself reaching for your phone because you have nothing to do, remember something. For over 300,000 years, every human who ever lived faced that exact moment. The difference is that they couldn't swipe it away. Instead, they stared into the fire, looked up at the stars, talked to the people around them, or simply sat there thinking. And somewhere in those quiet moments, the human imagination learned how to build the world you live in today.